we get some sweet dog ambience?
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's life on the south side.
Oh, is that from your end? Is that from your south side?
This mic is too good. I can turn down my gain. Or close the window, I guess.
I see it live on Build the Scene, so if you don't see it, you might want to refresh it, and it should pop up right at the top saying happening now.
Why is my thing now? There we go.
Okay, I found it.
Oh, something I did forget to mention, and I usually do it off the air. I do teach at a Catholic school, so please try and keep it PG-13 because my students do know about the show.
Sure.
And I'd like to keep my job.
Sure.
No problem. Okay, I think I just shared us on my personal page. Yep. Okay. Cool.
And I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe.
Whoa. Sorry.
Okay, I've got everything going on my page here. All right, Bill, we're just gonna let you
I will lead the way.
Lead us down the pathway.
I'm throwing one more share and then we'll get going.
All right.
I'm just going to restart my cam because it went blurry.
Sarah,
Oh, well.
how is your hair so on point when nobody can get a haircut right?
You learn YouTube is a guide and you learn to do it yourself.
Oh man, that's impressive.
Thanks. I just put a hot iron through it just to smooth it down. That's all. Because before it was just like just girl things.
I haven't touched my hair in 6 months, and quarantine is just an excuse for me not to cut it or do anything to it.
Let it grow.
I let my 9-year-old daughter shave my head this weekend.
Nice. She do a good job?
There's really no hair left to begin with, so.
Fairly easy job to start with, you mean?
Yeah. Hey, so we actually have, it looks like 10 people tuned in right now. Gabrielle Moore is one of them for sure. She's in the comments.
Hello. Thanks for joining.
So I'm just going to lead us in like we're on the radio show / podcast, and it'll go wherever it goes from there. Okay. As long as everybody's ready.
Sure.
Okay. For those of you that are tuned in, if you have a question for the band, if you want to comment on the Facebook stream, and if I feel it's appropriate for what we're talking about, I will ask them. If they see one that they want to answer, you guys can also just pop in and answer it if you see it in there. Good?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, you're tuned in to the Pennsylvania Rock Show, featuring the best unsigned rock and metal that Pennsylvania has to offer right here on PARockshow.com, megarockradio.net, 107.1 FM, St. Louis, Missouri, builddescene.com, rootaroo.radio.com, xrpradio.co.uk across the pond, and then across the border into Canada, we have, yeah, look at me messing that up. I forgot it. altrockradio.ca. That's terrible. My name is Bill. This is episode number 517 of the Pennsylvania Rock Show. It's been a long, interesting day today. However, with me today is the band Nox Emesis. What's up?
Hey.
Not so much.
How you doing?
How's everybody feeling?
It's hot in this room.
Yeah. It's
So,
a little hotter than lately.
Yeah. It was my landlord said to me the other day, he's like, "Hey, did you put your air conditioners in the windows?" I'm like, "No, we're fine. It's been cold out." Woke up today. I was like, "Oh, they're going in."
Feel that.
Hey, so I'm going to ask probably the only cliche question that I ever ask, and that's where the band name came from.
Oh yeah, I think Sarah should answer this one.
So, I gave us homework after practice one day. I said, we really need to start thinking of names, and everyone went home and wrote down some phrases or words or ideas that they like. And I said, let's just bring them in, and we'll see what feels good, what sounds nice. And I don't know. I was just trying to, I don't know. I like Latin sounding words. Nox means night, dark in Latin. And emesis is a medical word for vomiting, and I just thought it sounded funny.
Night vomiting. Okay,
that's pretty much what it means. So we had a few ideas, and then I just asked some of my clients at work, and I just off the cuff said, "I'm not going to tell you what these phrases are, but just pick which one you like better." And everybody liked Nox Emesis, so I went to practice armed with that knowledge, and the guys liked it too, so we voted it in. So that's where the name came from.
And nobody else wanted to tell that story.
Well, no, Sarah came up with a name, so I just thought it'd be appropriate.
That sounds like a cop out.
No, we like the name.
Everything I like is kind of funny or silly, so this was kind of a compromise, but it still has that juvenile thing about puking in there that makes me laugh. So,
well, Christina from the Shadow Event is commenting, and she actually provided a question that I've been asking a lot recently. So I'm gonna open things up with her question since she's in there. And her question is, if they were going to do if you guys, your band, was going to be in a cartoon show, what cartoon would you be in, and what character would play each of you?
Ooh, wow.
Anybody particularly want to take this, or
they're all going?
Look, I can come up with creative, dumb answers for almost any question. I can talk all day, but if anybody else wants to take this, feel free.
Go for it.
I didn't think of any cartoons. I would say, if anything, I would imagine that it might be something like really quirky, like Adventure Time, and then they would throw like a some sort of barbecue party or hoot and showdown or something like that, and we would probably be the people that play at this said showdown. That's probably the only thing I can think of.
If
I were a cartoon character, I'd be Bob Belcher, but he's not on Adventure Time, so.
Well, it could be a crossover.
Crossover.
Could definitely be a crossover.
I think we're all from different shows, probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, I'm a little more old school. My favorite cartoon's Ren and Stimpy, so maybe Ren. Playing in a haunted house episode, maybe.
Is that everybody?
Do I have to pick a cartoon character?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess I'll just make this comment since it seems to make sense. Is that some of the influence on a song or two that I've written was from the film Akira, or pronounced maybe more like Akira, which is a Japanese animated film. So I would say the character probably Kaneda would be more in line with. I don't know if I pick Kaneda. Maybe Tetsuo, one of the two from Akira.
Everyone's going to rush to Google now.
It's actually a very famous film.
Let's see. If each of you had a chance to sit on that proverbial bench where they say if you can sit on a bench for an hour and speak to anyone, what musician would you speak to? And what one question would you ask them?
Oh, man.
I literally have thought about those kind of things all the time. I actually probably have a lot of questions for almost every musician I love. But I've talked to some of them. I've asked some of those questions because I've met some of my heroes. I actually have a lot of questions about biographical information about some of my heroes who are more obscure and you can't find much biographical information on them. So that always comes to my mind. So me and Sarah are big fans of the band Pig. That was actually kind of how we connected musically. And I've met him several times and I've asked him questions about his music, but I always wanted to know more about his early biography. And you can't find any information of it online. So I actually would ask him some questions about that.
Next. Now we're going, somebody else, please.
So whenever I started playing music, I started playing in orchestras and jazz bands and stuff like that, a lot of school assembled projects. And I got really into music theory, I should say, whenever I was learning how to play jazz. So I think if I were to sit next to anybody, I would sit next to Buddy Guy. It was a really big influence with jazz drumming with me. And I would really just ask him about, I'm such a gearhead. I could talk about cymbals and heads and sticks and equipment all day, but it's just about, I guess, personal preference, asking a lot of anytime I come across a musician, I always like to ask, what do you play on? What do you like to play? Stuff like that. So it'll probably be a lot more of his preference on gear.
Have you ever been to his restaurant in Chicago?
I haven't.
It's awesome. The only drawback is that they serve RC Cola.
I can live with that.
There's literally a stage there and there's somebody playing all the time. When the day I was there was a solo artist playing acoustic blues. It was awesome.
That sounds really cool.
And I didn't want to leave, but my brother wanted to go explore the city some more. It was also -2 degrees out, but
oh man!
I probably wouldn't want to leave either.
Yeah, I would have stayed and listened to the music.
Anybody else have an idea of who they want to ask a question on that bench?
For me, it's Mozart, and as much as I'd try to want to pry some magical, mystical, composition knowledge out of him, I actually would ask him what it was like partying with Ben Franklin in Paris and what they got up to. I think I picked Mozart because I feel like he'd be a fun guy to hang out with. We'd just go crazy. And also, I might learn something too. I don't know.
Cool. Did we get everybody?
I like Sachem said, I really like Pig, and I have had the opportunity to a few times sit and talk to Raymond Watts and learn a little bit about him, outside of the persona. So that was always cool. But I was maybe pick. I really like Queens of the Stone Age. I find Josh Homme to be an interesting character. So I would probably just ask him a little bit about his life and some of the mysterious stuff that happened around the time where he took a hiatus for a while, and it's been kind of all mysterious, like what really happened. So maybe I would want to know that.
Let's see. Let's say that you end up headlining an international tour. What local bands would you take with you as openers? So this is a chance to help your friends out.
Local bands.
So I'm biased because two of my favorites, Anthony plays in Skylight already, and I love Skylight, and I play in the Molecule Party as of recently. If I didn't start playing with them, they would have been my first choice, but that's a biased choice now. There are a lot of great local artists that I like, though. Those are two of my favorites. God Hates... Can I say that on this show?
Yeah.
God Hates Unicorns. I
knew where you were going with that one.
Okay, you knew they were already. There's a lot of local artists that I love. I've only been living in Pittsburgh I moved away for 8 years, and I moved back almost 2 years ago. So I still have a lot of artists that I need to see who are around now. But There's a lot of great ones. Any other ones that you guys really like?
I really like this band, Velcro Shoes. They're not metal, but they were kind of like an indie rock thing, and I saw them. It just happened to once, and it was really fun. Royal Honey, shout out to Angelo and all those guys, and of course the Molecule Party. I've known Sean forever. We both used to work at Mallorca back in the day, and that's how I met him. So yeah, those are a few of my local faves.
I like hearing Royal Honey come up. I designed their website.
Oh, really? Yep. Yeah, I just know those guys from around and get to catch them every once in a while. And I'm not sure if I've ever got to see them live incantation, but I follow them on Facebook and try to. Well, we haven't been able to get out for a while, so
I don't really know those guys that well. I know that I've met a few of them, mostly through Sean. But I actually went to their album release show they did at Howlers. I don't know when that was, 6-8 months ago. Or I can't remember how long ago it was now. And they were awesome. I was really impressed with them because I always felt when I moved away from Pittsburgh in 2010, and at that time I always felt a lot of live bands kind of didn't really have their stuff together in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, it was just kind of my opinion as a young person living in the city. And since I moved back, I've really been impressed with the quality of the artists I've seen. Sometimes I go in and I see, okay, here's some rock band, like there are 1,000 rock bands in Pittsburgh. And then they really, surprisingly, are a good band. So I've had that experience a lot with different bands since I came back, being very impressed with the quality of talent in Pittsburgh lately.
Mark Gibson, coming from the chat, he is... I don't know what his official title is, but we're going to go with owner of Club Radioactive in Katanning. It's a venue. And his question for you guys is, how do we get young people interested in live music?
Mm-hmm.
I do have a few things I want to say about this, but does anybody else want to?
No, go for it.
First? I used to be in kind of a metalcore band, which I wasn't really that into metalcore music at the time. But one thing I noticed about the genre is it had a lot more of a visual component to most of the live bands than a lot of other rock bands or metal bands that younger audiences really identified with. And, you have a lot of different philosophies in terms of like how gimmicky it can be when you have certain things choreographed on stage or different things going on or the way you look or different things. Sometimes people just want to come and take their instruments and wear their work clothes and rock out or something. But I really think having a strong visual component of some sort with any band is pretty much vital to make anybody interested in live music these days. I think if you only think of it as like an audio kind of thing when you go to a live show, you're not going to really keep people's attention nearly as well if you don't also have some kind of visual component to it.
I think you just described my classroom.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe find a way to incorporate more of the technology element into it. I mean, I know the idea is to get people to a physical space in person, but maybe do some teasers with live streams of some shows. Maybe a way to connect on social media. If you're here, you get this, or you do that, or I don't know. I'm just sort of going off the cuff, but somehow connect with the sites and the technology that they're kind of reliant on and interested in for socializing, and somehow try to get that incorporated to a live setting. I don't know how that would work exactly, but it's a really good question. That's a really good question and something we do need to work on.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. I mean, I think people can go watch any of their favorite bands and go to YouTube and watch them like play in one of their concerts without having to actually buy a ticket and leave their home.
That's true.
And the live music experience is that much better than just watching it from YouTube, but it's kind of hard to communicate that to people, especially if they go to live shows and they don't have a good experience. I mean, sometimes you don't like the band you're watching, or you don't think, especially if you're going to local shows, it's a little different than touring acts. Most of the time have a pretty tight live show. That's not always true, but most of the time it's a little bit more of a risk when you're going to see people who are unsigned artists. And again, I'm sounding kind of negative. I love Pittsburgh bands, and I really, like I said, I've been more impressed with the quality of artists since I moved back. But it is still, especially if you're going to see a band that you don't know yet. In order to convince them that they're going to have a good time watching you play live is very difficult. You have to definitely find reasons that they would want to leave their home to do it. That you can't just say, "Oh, look, my music's great." Maybe your music is great, but you got to prove that to people, and you got to prove to them that they're going to have a good experience at the show.
Yeah, and to bounce off of what you're saying, Sachem, I think like anytime I've ever been to a show, regardless of what genre it is, whenever I find a band that I like to listen to, I will immediately make sure I follow them on some sort of social media platform, most likely Instagram. I use Instagram a lot more than I use Facebook or anything else. And one of the first things I always say whenever I mention a band to a friend, I always say, "Hey, you should check this band out. I saw them live whenever ago, and I tell you what, they really bop, or like they really have a very great stage presence." And I think that's one thing is like if I'm sitting at a show listening to a band I've never ever listened to or heard of, everyone else's energy is going to depict on how interested I am, because it's like, wow, like a lot of people are really into this. Like maybe like where do these guys come from? What kind of music do they play? How long have they been playing? So it really opens up hey, like you got to really experience this kind of thing. Like once you come out to the show, it's like, oh, well, you know what? Yeah. Because I've had friends drive across the state to, like whenever we go to Philadelphia or something like that to see a band. And even still to this day, it's, hey, I greatly appreciate you taking me to go see this band, or even live shows that even whenever I play with Skylight, and even whenever I've met Sachem playing at shows, I'm always very interested in hearing music and being like, hey, well, check these guys out, check these guys out. So I think stage presence and show energy is a really big way to get a lot of young people into music.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, you show a lot of enthusiasm on stage, and people can identify with that a lot better than people who are just look normal on stage.
Hey, before I forget, I introduced you as a band, but we didn't really introduce you individually.
Sure.
Does one of you want to take a lead on that, and almost like you're on stage?
I don't.
Nobody wants.
Front man, let's hear it.
Come on.
Well, I guess I'll start. I play mostly. I'm focused on vocals in the band, but I also play guitar. And me and Jake might also be kind of sort of swapping instruments at some points at certain songs in the future and stuff. I have written a lot of music over the years. I had 3 solo albums. I was in a metal band before. I kick out a lot of music when I'm on a roll and I'm, in the habit of composing regularly. So I kind of identify mostly as a songwriter, like as a composer more than anything else as a musician. But in the band, I would say like vocals are kind of my main area, and then some guitar. My name's Sachem, by the way.
Okay, pass the baton, Sachem. Pick somebody.
I'm gonna, from the way I'm looking, Sarah's next to me. So
yeah, I don't know which way they're all organized.
Okay, who knows if it's the same on everyone's screen?
Yeah,
All right. I'm Sarah Heber, and I played the guitar in the band. Maybe we'll do some backup vocals at some point. I've been a little shy about singing in public for a while. I kind of ended up, I don't know why, just stopped doing it. But these guys have really been supportive and given me a lot of confidence. So I just sort of am getting over that. But yeah, the main thing I do with the group is the guitar. And we'll pass it on to Jake.
It's like the Brady Bunch. She's looking.
Yeah, I'm Jake Boorish. I play the Moog monophonic synthesizer in the band, and I'm also covering some guitar parts. And I think maybe be singing some background vocals if we work those out on the songs we have, or some that we might be writing right now. Me and Sachem go way back. We were sound guys at Pitt together for the jazz band. And he's been writing songs. He can't stop writing songs. They just come out of him, and he writes great stuff. So I'm glad to be in this band playing his music.
Jay, sorry, I'm just gonna put a side note after you're finishing. You had more you were gonna say?
I was wrapping it up there.
Oh, a quick side note. Jake and I, so I was kind of writing songs for a new band I was trying to put together already before we all kind of found each other. So Jake and I actually performed some of our songs that are technically Nox Emesis songs at 2 shows we did together, right? We did Hard Rock Cafe, and we did the Versus series. Actually, we were battling God Hates Unicorns at that Versus series they did. So Jake and I have performed 2 of our original songs already before Nox Emesis was official. So anyway, that's just kind of a little side note there.
Anyways, I'm Anthony Licata. I play drums and just sort of keep hitting them. That's all I do. I just hit them.
You sing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all been tossed around the idea, you know. Station brought up, he was like, "Hey, if any of you guys got anything that you want to throw in there, or you know, definitely go ahead and do it." And I sort of dabble in it. You know, I listen to a little bit like progressive metal, metalcore, hardcore stuff like that. But we'll see where the water flows.
So Christina just piped in another question for you guys. She wants to know how many songs you have as the band.
I'm not good with song names, so I just sort of, oh yeah, that one.
Okay. Actually, I did want to touch upon this point of kind of our situation as a band. Is that we actually, so we have, I like to do short and sweet sets. I like to do 30-minute sets musically if I can. I mean, if a promoter wants me to do longer, I'll make it work. But I'm really the kind of person who likes to do 30-minute sets, like in and out, like do it tight, do it well, get it done. And so we have, I think, 6 songs that we've learned now, which is like a full 30-minute set, basically. And we pretty much just learned our 6th song to finish our set to be ready to do our first live show right before all of this quarantine stuff happened. So it really kind of, unfortunately, affected us in terms of like launching ourselves as a band. Because like I said, we haven't done our first show yet. We're going to be doing our first show after quarantine ends, which is who knows when. So that kind of has held us off. But yeah, so we have, 30-minute set worth of music that we have. We pretty much just need to get together a few times when we're ready and tighten it up, and that's good to go. And that's like when we were talking about vocals. We are potentially going to add more backing vocals to our songs because we haven't started adding anything like that in. But the set's pretty much together and ready to go. I think I got sidetracked. What was the question I was answering?
How many songs you have?
How many songs? So we have 6 songs that we know, and we have more stuff that we've written that we haven't started practicing yet.
Have you guys been rehearsing throughout this?
We have not gotten together since quarantine started. We've been talking about trying some virtual jamming programs, which I actually had been experimenting with. Another friend of mine wanted to try one out. So I actually have, tried out some of these programs people use for virtual jamming now. But I've only tried that with one other person. I haven't tried it with like a group of people yet. But we've kind of tossed around the idea of trying some things like that. The technology is maybe not quite where we'd like it to be with jamming online. But yeah, we may potentially do some of that soon because we're getting
there's lag and latency and all those things to play with.
Exactly. So I think we're getting a little impatient at this point to just get our band started because we kind of had to hold off on things for now. So now we're kind of like moving forward with some of that stuff some more.
Well, since you have some extra time to get started, what would your dream first show be?
I feel like I've been talking a lot. Anybody else want to take this?
I think, well, aside from lineup, in Pittsburgh, I think we have a lot of really great venues. I've only played at, I think, a handful. I was in a progressive metal band, I would call it, in 2016, and we played at Mr. Smalls and Roboto. I've been to Cativo before, Club Cafe, which is where I think possibly my favorite place I've ever played would be Mr. Smalls in Pittsburgh, but the dream show probably have to be. I'm not entirely too sure of like an exact name, but I always see on social media of these very large like European electronic shows that they hold in like the middle of nowhere, and like it's like, hey, there's like pinpointed GPS location in the middle of the mountains, and they cram 2,000 or 3,000 people, so just like an extremely large stage, extremely beautiful mountain views, and very large crowd.
So
and a drum solo.
Of course, a drum solo. Anybody else want to take a shot at that one?
Your question was like what venue?
Well, just
I was playing.
Yeah. What would be your dream first show? What could happen? Where would it be? Anything you want to throw in.
I mean, I don't. I like the small town shows. I think I wouldn't really be comfortable doing my first show like at a stadium. I like doing small venues. I like the local scene we have in Pittsburgh and the way that the artists I've worked with have supported each other, and we have a good time. I'd say one thing that I always felt about Pittsburgh music is that it's non-competitive in comparison to many places, which is some people might argue that's a bad thing because the competition does kind of drive up our how much effort bands can put in sometimes. But in general, I love that aspect that, it's friends getting together, we do shows. And so, I'd want to just get some of my favorite Pittsburgh artists together at a mid-size, Pittsburgh venue and, do a show together and put the lineup that we want to put and not just like a lineup we have to do or something, sometimes you got to do shows and you got to play with people that maybe you don't quite fit with, or maybe you open for a band where it's not really your show and you're just the extra guy on the band or something. I kind of like to do shows where it's like, we get to do the lineup, we get to decide the artistic direction of the show.
I think we're really lucky in this town to have so many great small venues, and I hope that a lot of them can persevere, although I'm really worried. But I think it's actually a lot easier in a small room to get the energy up, provided that you have enough people in the room. I think it can be really challenging playing in, I don't have firsthand experience from the stage end of things on this, but I think it can be really hard to play in a big amphitheater or an arena. I saw The Who at PPG, and they did a great job, but it was a Wednesday night, and the opener came out, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name of this band, but they were great. Their energy level was enormous, but it was a Wednesday night, and people were tired, and the singer kind of went on a rant about how the last time they played in Pittsburgh, they were at Brillo Box, and he had so much more fun because it was just the energy was through the roof in Brillo Box, and he's saying, well, there's 20,000 people here. Why aren't you guys more excited? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, like you got to fill up all this dead air between us and you, and we're just all ready to go to sleep. So I think big shows can be fun, but I think there's something to be said for the intimacy of a place like Brillo Box or Club Cafe or Mr. Smalls even.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I guess I didn't answer, huh?
I mean, you can pass if you want.
Yeah, I mean, same. I mean, I the only band I've played in really was like a all-girl little punk band I had in middle school. So, for me, this is all pretty new. And I mean, we just played at my middle school talent show. So that was the epitome of my stage, in a group experience. So I'm looking forward to, just like the guy said, just a smaller, medium size Pittsburgh venue with some friends, people we know. Yeah, I like Cativo a lot. Club Cafe, the Moose is cool. All of them are really, really neat and have their own vibe. So I think I would just be interested in starting out like that, just to sort of get comfortable and I agree with Jake with the energy thing too. Sometimes a smaller, more intimate thing can have that more personal energy exchange and vibe exchange. So that's a pretty cool thing.
So looking at you in this stream, I think that I may be showing my age with this next question, but back in the day, MTV and VH1 used to have these shows where they had you tell about your music, and
I remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm definitely the oldest one in here. I can tell.
I don't know. I'm the grandma of the band. Believe me.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to play your song, A Little Justice. And I just want you to tell us a little bit about the song before we do that.
Oh, sure. Well, so that's what I was saying. This was released as one of my solo songs, and it was one we started when we were, putting a set of music together. So we play a different version of it too. We play it in a different key. And I've actually kind of rewritten all of the lyrics for it. So it's like kind of about different things almost now. And I was thinking about rewriting the lyrics another time. But it was actually written a long time ago. And I even recorded it a long time ago, but I didn't release it till less than a year ago. I didn't really know what way I wanted to release that song. It was originally intended for a solo album, but just ended up getting released as a single. It's kind of an electronic rock song, and it's actually, even though our version is detuned, this song kind of sounds more like rock and roll to me than our other songs. Some of our other stuff is much heavier. So yeah, kind of sort of like electronic rock, I would say, is the way I would describe the song.
Okay. So we're going to take a moment and listen to A Little Justice by Nox Emesis, and we will be right back. For those of you that are on the live stream, you're going to have to wait until Friday to hear the song. And if you are trying to figure out where you can find out that information, you go to buildthescene.com/show/pars, PARS, or you can just go to PARockshow.com, which will take you to that longer address. But this show is actually, it streams, if you're listening at the beginning, on a bunch of different radio stations, and it plays on Fridays, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays on those radio stations, including the FM station in St. Louis. That one is Sunday mornings. But hey, so what we're going to do now is we're going to be quiet for a second, and then I'll bring us back in as if we were listening to music. Okay, that was A Little Justice by Nox Emesis. My name is Bill. This is episode number 517 of the Pennsylvania Rock Show. And with me are Jake, Sarah, Sachem, and Anthony of Nox Emesis. We were talking about some different things earlier. We got their opinions on what it takes to get young people more into live music. We talked a little bit about the song A Little Justice. We found out that Anthony wants to go big or go home, and everybody else would like to start out in a smaller venue.
I'm definitely wrong. If I got the opportunity
Exactly
to
right.
play something amazing, I would take it, but it's just not what I fantasize about.
We're just realists here. Even though you said dream.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say yes to anything. If the show sounds cool, I'll say yes to it. But yeah, I mean, I think I would feel a little more comfortable doing a smaller venue as a first show.
All right, so earlier I said to you, one of the questions I asked was if you were on an international tour as a headliner, you're going to bring some local bands with you. If you're on that tour and I'm tagging along, what would we listen to in between the different show dates? So what would be our
like our road tunes?
Yeah.
Well, I think you'd get quite a mix from the four of us.
Yeah.
Sarah and I maybe have the most similar CD collections. Yeah, we still have CDs. Don't laugh. But I like a wide range of music, so you're gonna get some weird stuff. Definitely. Okay, I'll just name a few artists that I would probably make somebody listen to. I am a huge Depeche Mode fan. Depeche Mode are like my favorite band. It's as weird as heavy as I write guitar riffs. You'd be surprised. Depeche Mode are like my favorite band. I also like avant-garde stuff. I like Frank Zappa. I like improvisational stuff. I like classical music. Probably make you listen to Schoenberg or Beethoven. That's just a few things, I guess. Anybody else?
I'm just pulling up my my MP3 player here. I still use Winamp.
Yeah.
I mean, like we mentioned before, Pig is one of my favorite bands. I do like Queens. I do like I like a combination. I like a lot of industrial kind of electro-industrial music, and I also like some of the I don't even know what I don't know what the kids call it these days, like desert rock, doom rock, some of that kind of stuff. So maybe you would hear some of that, and I do like electronic and also some bluesy kind of rock stuff. Like I really like Mark Lanigan. I'm a sucker for a deep voice, if you haven't figured it out by those descriptions, and yeah, maybe a little classical thrown in there. And shout out to Spotlights too. They're in Pittsburgh now too. I wanted to mention that them and their new album. They're kind of have like a slow doomy with failure in it somehow. The band Failure, not that they are. I didn't mean that they are Failure. The band Failure is another favorite of mine too. So I would probably listen to them. I've really loved their new EP. So yeah, Spotlights too.
What about you, Jake?
Down to you.
Well, if you open my Spotify, you'd see that I listen to a lot of country music. So it mostly tends towards like the Bakersfield stuff. So Buck Owens. The jazzier, the better. So Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, old Lefty Frizzell, Red Simpson. I love that stuff. When it's country, but they're playing like, a lot of chord substitutions and they're going down the road to bebop. I can't get enough of that stuff. I grew up listening to a lot of Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. As far as rock, I went through a huge Led Zeppelin phase when I was a teenager, like a lot of kids. I kind of outgrew that a little bit, but every once in a while I get the let out. I love Ozzy. I love old metal. I like older music, I guess is the theme. Newer stuff that I sometimes listen to is maybe Rage Against the Machine. I think System of a Down, as famous as they are, some of their songs are they're out of left field, and you just listen to them and you go, wow, where'd that come from? They're great stuff. So I kind of listen to all kinds of stuff as well.
Yeah. Going through my Spotify as well, you tend to get lost in the scroll. It's quite an abyss. Growing up, my mom listened to old like 80s and 90s R&B cleaning the house. So I went from like R&B and rap, and then making my way over to rock, and then getting into like some more of like the grunge and punk, and then I got into pop punk. I listen to primarily now like a lot of more like heavier like hardcore, progressive metal. There's some like extreme stuff that I listen to. But yeah, I mean, you'd hit shuffle a couple of times. You'd find Stevie Nicks, Eagles, some new stuff like Blink 182, Rage Against the Machines, a lot of stuff like that. I'm kind of a big Tool fan. I have a Tool tattoo. And so yeah,
we didn't even know that about you.
We didn't know that.
Fun facts.
Well, most likely because every time we practice, you guys are always facing me, looking at my beautiful throne of equipment. But yeah, so it's primarily everything. I mean, I don't say no to anything.
Somebody's vibrating.
My phone went off. Turn it off.
I'm
Perfect
surprised
time.
mine hasn't, and it's sitting right here too. Let me think. So usually, lately, I've been asking this question about an apocalyptic event, but I'm not going to throw that one at you guys tonight.
We're kind of in the middle of one.
Here we are.
I asked it last week too.
Probably have a lot of personal information to respond with.
Well, I ran out of toilet paper 3 months ago, so
Toilet seat bidet, kids.
Wait, a month before quarantine?
So let's see. If you were going to manage a band from the Pittsburgh scene, and you could go and pick members from different bands and put them together to create the band. So you can't play in the band, but you can hand pick them and you manage them. Who would you put in that band?
Oh, man. Go ahead, Sachem. That's a tough one.
Okay, my drummer, hands down, if it weren't any of us, obviously, so it couldn't be Anthony. My drummer, hands down, this is funny, would be Sean Murphy for the Molecule Party, which is funny because he just uses a backing track for his drums. But he writes the most interesting drum rhythms and such when he composes a piece of music. So I think like it would be like Sean would be like their composer on drums and they'd play to a backing track of his drums. Who else would I put in there? I'm trying to think like who my favorite guitar players are. I actually really like Marcus from God Hates Unicorns. And he has like kind of an interesting, almost sort of grungy-ish 90s alt style, but he's like, I don't know, there's something sort of interesting about his guitar style I like a lot. Beyond that, I'm trying to think who are like my favorite vocalists in Pittsburgh. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Skylight, the other band Anthony plays in. Ariana is a really great vocalist. She'd definitely be an option for vocalist. And I don't know who I would throw in as like the bass player or keyboard player. I can't think off the top of my head, but that's like a rough kind of idea of some people I would throw together.
Oh, God. Yeah. Guitarist, hands down, would be Jim Relja. He's a local guy out in the South Hills. And I mean, I've known him my whole life. He was a friend of my dad. And I took lessons from him on and off, and we're just, good friends. But he continues to blow me away every time I see him play. And he can play pretty much any style. And he and his friend Freddie, they play under the Regular Joes, and they play out a lot, mostly in the South Hills. And that wasn't me.
Sorry.
And I mean, anything from blues to rock to country to Spanish classical style. I mean, he's just amazing. And I'm always inspired by him. So I would definitely pick him. I'm trying to think who else. I don't, I see a lot of these bands, but I don't necessarily know everybody's name. You just see people's faces, but you're like, oh, that dude from that band. Yeah. But I just wanted to mention him because he's just my favorite guitarist. So for maybe it would be an acoustic thing, and I would pick Jim. I'm always wanting him to record more, so here's me being your manager and telling you to record.
So there's a couple like individuals who, like in the music that I listen to, have really stood out to me. I would probably say, if I'm going to make a band that I would like to listen to, it would be a little heavier. I don't know full names, but I'll name first names and bands. I obviously starting with drumming. It would probably have to be Austin from Lorna Shore. He some of his chops are just completely wild. I would say singer, it would be JT from Era. Guitarist, I would probably also have to go. I don't really know very many guitarists. Like even like walking through the music store, I didn't see the guitars. I go right back to the little hole in the wall drum section. And the same thing with like bass. I'm not really like I think the only person that has really stood out to me is the bass player for Primus. Every time My Name Is Mud comes on, the volume knob just gets turned just a little bit more.
Les Claypool.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
But he's not a local guy.
yeah, and that's another thing. So it's like I don't really know like a bunch of local people. I'd say if anything, it would probably be something like I'd say all the local people I know would be like you guys and all the other people in my my old band. But it's still like playing in a band and like getting out and about rather than just playing in my attic or basement or whatever is still kind of new. So you have to come back to me and that in like once quarantine is over. Maybe I'll find some people.
Yeah, I think it takes like a few years of attending shows
Right.
to
Yeah.
really get used to who's who in the scene and everything.
Hey,
So Anthony, you played with Skylight, and I do think she's one of the best singers around. Actually,
I second that. She's
Every time I show somebody her music, they always compliment her as a vocalist. I say, yeah, like she does. Like I really like her tone. Like she's a very strong singer, and she's not shy at all on stage. You know, she has a very really energetic stage presence.
definitely.
did you guys see Jason's comment in the? I just put it up on the screen.
I want to play guitar for the fantasy band. I feel it.
Sounds good.
nice.
So I'm gonna give you guys one more question and then a chance to tell everybody where to find you, and then we're gonna call it a night because my wife needs to do live stream tonight too.
Okay.
Usually she goes first, and we weren't home.
It's my turn for the green screen.
That's right. And since really we got the green screen for what she's doing after I convinced her that's why we needed it. So that's why we have it. She needed it. She also needed this webcam and
There you go.
and these lights that are all over the place. So if you were in the movie Rockstar, you guys are you familiar with the movie Rockstar?
Mm.
Is that
I'm not too familiar with it.
is that the Mark
I've seen
Wahlberg
like
one?
little clips of it.
I haven't seen it.
All right, so the movie, it's loosely based on Judas Priest and when Tim Ripper Owens came in and took over. But the band kind of pushed themselves away from it before it was released. But the idea is that the singer from a tribute band ends up joining the band and fronting it.
Oh.
And then he walks off the stage and somebody else takes over. But that's not really what happened. Rob Halford came back. But if you were in that movie, like if that movie was based around you, what band would you end up playing with?
Oh, like if we.
So,
I haven't
so
seen
what
the
band would you want to be in a tribute band for, and then end up playing? So like,
Oh yeah.
so like, say you were in a tribute band for Kiss, and you were playing Paul Stanley, and then you end up fronting Kiss.
Mm-hmm. Oh, mine's definitely Depeche Mode by far, as a vocalist at least.
Oh man. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Oh,
Skip me.
as a guitar player,
I'd say if it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I would say if anything, it would probably obviously be drums, and it would be for a band that I've listened. It was my very, very first band that got me into like heavier music. They call themselves Pop Mosh. It's a Day to Remember out of Ocala, Florida. I've seen them live twice. But I actually, it was like a month or two ago, I got a notification on my Spotify that says I'm one of their like top 2% listeners or something like that.
Nice.
But literally any song you put on, I know it. I can tap it. I could play it on the set. I could definitely see myself doing something like that.
For me, as far as bands that are still in the mix and not defunct, it would probably be something like the Avid Brothers or Old Crow Medicine Show. Probably the second one, since my last name's not Avid. Wouldn't work so well. Also Hanson.
Nice.
If we're going with people whose names are not the same as my last name.
So, I don't know if you're watching the comments, but I just told Jason that his band was on the show, but he wasn't there. So I don't know if they didn't tell him or if he wasn't available.
Oh no!
Oh, whoops.
I guess we'll find out here momentarily when he sees that.
He's going to be crushed by all the interviews he was left out of.
Aw.
That's not the truth.
All right, so where can the listeners? Oh, you know what? I'm going to ask you one more question. Why not? I can pare it down to shorter later.
Okay.
How about an embarrassing moment you've had on stage, or someone in your band has had on stage? So you can either tell me about yourself or someone, and it doesn't have to be this band. It could be a band you were in the past.
Yes, I see. I've definitely had embarrassing stage moments. I'm trying to think what the best ones were.
I would probably say, like, now for the most time, like, even whenever I was in my band before this, we practiced, I would say, as strict as a routine could come. Like, as you know, you get up, you're listening to it in the car, you're practicing it after work. Maybe the only time that something bad has happened to me, the one show I played, I didn't bring enough sticks, and I broke my stick. And in the middle of the show, or like in the song I was playing, I'd hurry up and flip it. But my hands were so sweaty that the one piece of wood kept rubbing up against my left ring finger, and it gave me the worst blood blister. So I can picture myself now of how silly I looked, only playing with my left hand, juggling a broken stick in my right hand, while at a time, just trying to, keep the click going and at least finish the show, regardless if I'm crawling past the finish line or being carried.
So I would say I can't think of any experiences where I've played a show and afterwards I was just like, wow, that was embarrassing. I wish that didn't happen. I don't know if I've ever had one that went quite that bad, but there were definitely, even though I do vocals and guitar and, have been writing mostly heavier sort of metal-ish music lately for this band, I kind of see myself as more of an electronic musician, and as a solo artist, I always did a lot of electronic music. And there are a lot of shows I've done where getting synthesizers to sound right in a live setting, like through a PA, can be very, very difficult. And so there have been some shows where I played where my backing tracks sounded so bad through the PA that I was kind of embarrassed about, the way that my songs sounded live. But even at those shows that were the worst ones I've had, like I did this one with the Molecule Party actually like 10 years ago. Molecule Party were playing and I did a solo set. And I remember it sounded like only like one channel was coming out of my stereo backing tracks and everything sounded all weird and distorted and everything. And I just remember leaving that show like, oh God, like that was the, worst experience ever as an electronic musician. But even those shows, the worst ones I've had like that, the audience doesn't normally, judge you the way that you judge yourself and such. So, if anything, the audience gets mad when you use synthesizers. They don't sit and say your synthesizers don't sound good enough, you know. So I don't know if I necessarily like ever had like a boot off the stage kind of moment like that, but I did have moments where I was embarrassed at the way you know, the sound was coming across to the audience, unfortunately.
Jake,
So last year I was playing a gig with Sachem, and we were playing this cover tune that has a key change after the first verse.
Oh, wait,
and
which one is that?
I swear this was your dad's song, "We're Not Safe."
We're Not Safe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like a rager, right? It's like comes out of the gate, you know, all these power chords, and we're having a great time. And then the key change came, and I swear, Sachem, you say that you started singing at the wrong place, but I think I just plowed right through the key change. Or maybe we both did. Yeah, but we looked at each other, and it felt like about 45 seconds of what are we doing? And I was just it was like I was just strumming my guitar. I didn't know where my left hand was. It was kind of funny because we got it back. It was probably only a second and a half.
Yeah,
we finally collapsed to the right key.
So the first show Jake and I did together, we played at Hard Rock Cafe last June, where we were doing a set. We did a couple of songs I wrote, and we were playing some music of my father, because my father was an early pioneer of electronic music from the Pittsburgh area. And so we started this song, "We're Not Safe," which is actually kind of a punk rock song. My dad was kind of involved with like punk rock as well as electronic music. And the song doesn't even really sound electronic. I think it actually has a bass player and a live drummer on this track and such. Anyway, so yeah, it's funny because we have some footage of that Hard Rock show, and we can actually see that moment where everything just went wrong. And I don't know if the audience, you know, like I said, the audience doesn't always notice when the things that you notice and things that go wrong for you. So I don't know if the audience even noticed, but yeah, we can kind of see where like everybody's like, oh wait, what were we doing? Oh, we missed the beat on that or something, you know. But then we brought it back, and that was like the only major mistake. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a major mistake, but that was the only like significant mistake I think we really had all night. We actually nailed like the rest of the set really well.
Yeah, we fooled them all because our intros and outros were perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
we ended together every time, which for a rock band, right?
Yeah, you know, I will say that's something to say about you know, the way you see the future of a show going. I practiced that set, I don't know, 60 times. Like I practiced my sets a lot before a show. And that show was really important to me because I hadn't played live in a long time. And I practiced that whole set we did alone in my room, probably at least like 50, 60 times. And that song I felt was just great in practice. And, you know, you still don't foresee like some little thing you forget or something when the show actually happens, where it came to like my entrance on the like second verse or something. And I was just like, oh wait, where was that entrance? You know, totally lost, even though I'd done it like 50 times at, you know, in my house without thinking about it. So I think that's kind of like, in some ways, that's kind of the fun of live performance, that you don't know quite what's going to happen. But yeah, sometimes it throws off your plans.
And that's really the thing that you have to convince young people of, is that when you go to a show, it's different every time.
That's what makes it lovely,
right? That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. You can catch those embarrassing moments on your TikTok and put it out for the world to see, kids. You got to come to the show.
I would like to say that generally, if I take a guitar solo in music, I improvise it. So literally, you don't have the same musical experience every time that you see me perform such a song live.
Okay, Sarah, are you going to be able to go back to middle school and pick one, or do you want me to pass?
I mean, I have like, that was the only like band I was in, but I did do some solo stuff. Just like the guy I mentioned before, Jim. If he would take a break, or he would let you come up and do some songs. So I had a few of my own little, it was like acoustic, folky kind of stuff, and I would just play some covers as well. So I that was my adult more experience, but it was solo-ish. So there was one time I can remember where sometimes I would get nervous, especially when you're about to sing that first note of the first song until you sort of warm up a little bit. And I was like, what if you start coughing? And then I would just had that thought, and I was like, don't think that. And then I choked on my saliva, and then I just had a coughing fit. I was like, you know, like trying to play. And so I put that into my head, and then it happened. So that was That was embarrassing. But I'm sure I'm sure there'll be plenty more embarrassing things to come.
So it's
So,
a
looking forward to it.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, pretty much. So I remember that. That was one time that happened.
All right, so the last thing I need from you guys tonight is just where can the listeners find you online?
So we have our Facebook / Nox Emesis, I think it is, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Facebook / Nox Emesis. And I actually did put a clip of that hard rock show we were talking about because, like I said, we did play one of the songs that was written to eventually be, for a band that became this band. And we'll put some links up to any of the other songs that we have right now. We have not decided what our first official recording release.
Anthony got frozen.
Oh yeah, Anthony's frozen. That's a funny picture. I think
It was.
But
Sorry.
so we have not decided what our first official release will be. Might be a single, possibly an EP or something, but I think we'll probably release a single online. We were talking about going to different recording studios, and now obviously a lot of businesses are closed and plans have been put off. So we may actually release a track that we mix and master ourselves, just to have it out there. But you'll definitely see links on our Facebook page. We'll have an Instagram page up shortly, and then we'll probably have a Bandcamp page if we release an official single, which we'll post links to on the Facebook page.
Yeah, so go to Facebook.
Facebook.
For now,
Thanks.
yeah. Very shortly, we'll have the Instagram up.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for coming on. You'll have to let him know since he bailed on us.
He got stuck.
But
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Bill, do you have any imparting wisdom for us about the Pittsburgh music scene and what you've learned and experienced from interviewing all these bands?
Wow. How long do you have?
Just anything you can share with us.
So I actually live in Leechburg, which is north of the city. It's about 40 minutes north of the city, near New Kensington, if you guys know where that is.
Yeah.
So what's been happening here, and I've been involved in the scene since 1996. So I feel like this area kind of led the way and the city followed. They just didn't know they were following. It's always been very like you were talking about not having competition before.
Yeah.
There was a huge competition in the city. Clearly not now, but there was. So the big thing, and this goes with any unsigned musicians really, is you guys all have the same target. So why work against each other?
Yeah.
So it's and really coming out of what we're going through right now, everyone's going to need each other. The bands are going to need the venues are going to need the bands.
Definitely.
And the bands are going to need other bands because you can only live stream so much and be seen so much during this.
Yeah.
So it's going to be everyone needs to work together when this is over.
Definitely. I feel that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's all I've always felt. You got to support each other. Don't work against each other. I think friendly competition is fine. I do feel a little bit competitive as a musician if I meet a songwriter who's better than me. I'm gonna be like, oh, I got to work harder. But I like musicians. I like supporting other musicians.
Hey, so before we go, I do want to mention the upcoming shows that we have on the Pennsylvania Rock Show. Christina, who was in here earlier, her band, The Shadow Event, is the next episode, which is
quick comment. She played that Hard Rock Cafe show with us. The Shadow Event played that on that bill.
Cool. And then we have Justin Wade. Kind of walks the line between Southern rock and country and even some pop. But it's my show, and I'll put whoever I want on.
Exactly.
Walker's K on June 19th. Hugh Twyman. You guys heard of Hugh?
Yeah.
He's he does a lot of similar things that I do, supporting the scene. And he and I actually started in the same year and never really talked to each other until this year.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that funny how things happen?
Mhm.
And then on July 1st, we'll have Foo Bar. And then we have a big jump. We jump to September 18th as far as my booking calendar goes. And that is Royal Honey that you guys mentioned.
Oh,
earlier.
neat.
Nice.
And they are actually on my other podcast too, but I don't have that pulled up. That one's called 3 Questions and a Song. I want to say that one's a July or August date for them.
The Molecule Party, the other band I play in, played a show with Foo Bar before, and they're an excellent band. I really like them.
They just recently released new music that I do play on the station.
Nice.
But tell you what, I am going to go ahead and end the show here. We'll listen to some more of the best unsigned rock that Pennsylvania has to offer, and metal. Don't hang up on me though yet. So once again, make sure you check us out each and every Friday night on buildthescene.com. And then you can find us all over the world, including the United Kingdom and Canada, and all over the United States as well. At Ocean Beach, San Diego, California, at Rootaroo Radio. That Canadian station is Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. They are alt rock radio. United Kingdom is xrpradio.co.uk. And, check it out. We'll see you next week with the Shadow event.